You put your headphones in and you start to pace. Maybe it's the kitchen. Maybe it's a slow lap of your bedroom, back and forth, the same 6 steps you've walked 1,000 times without ever really seeing them. The music comes on, and somewhere in the first 30 seconds, you leave. Not literally. Your body is still here, walking its little circuit, maybe gesturing at nobody, mouthing words to a person who isn't in the room. But you, the part of you that matters, are gone. You're somewhere else entirely, in a scene so vivid it has weather and lighting and dialogue you can actually hear. You're the hero of it. You're saying the perfect thing you never got to say. You're being understood in a way you almost never are out here. And then you blink, and it's 2 hours later, and the tea you made has gone cold, and you genuinely could not tell anyone what you were doing the whole time. If that landed a little too accurately, this one is about you. And there is a name for it, a real one, from real research. So let's actually understand it, because it is stranger and kinder than just having an overactive imagination. Start with the ordinary version, because everyone does this. Everyone daydreams. You drift off in a meeting, you rehearse an argument in the shower, you imagine winning the lottery for exactly as long as it takes to boil the kettle. That is normal. It is your mind idling, wandering, doing background admin. It is a passenger seat. For some people, though, it is the driver's seat. The daydream isn't a drift, it is a destination. It is a whole second life, running in high definition, with recurring characters and storylines that continue for years, that they return to the way you return to a favorite show. And it is so absorbing, so much more vivid and more rewarding than the meeting they are supposed to be in, that it starts to quietly cost them their actual life. In 2002, a clinical psychologist named Eli Summer gave this a name. He called it maladaptive daydreaming. And his definition is the important part, so listen to it. Extensive fantasy activity that replaces human interaction or gets in the way of your work, your studies, your relationships. 2 halves, the vivid inner world and the price it charges. Both have to be there. Here is the first thing that surprises people. This is not a disorder of imagination being weak. It is imagination being extraordinarily, almost dangerously strong. These are people who can conjure an entire world, fully cast, emotionally real, on demand. If that were a controllable skill, we would call it a gift. The problem isn't the ability. The problem is that the ability found a door and walked through it and started living there. So how do they get in? Because this is the part that gives it away, and it is weirdly specific. They pace, or they rock, or they spin something in their hand, or they walk the same loop for an hour. And nearly always, there is music. In one study of 90 self-identified daydreamers, around 4 out of 5 of them used this exact combination, repetitive movement plus a soundtrack, to drop into the fantasy. And that isn't a quirk, it is the mechanism. The movement and the music together act like a runway. They pull the mind into a state of deep absorption, an effortless, trance-like focus, where your awareness of the actual room, the actual you, quietly fades out. Researchers describe it as basically self-hypnosis. The pacing keeps the trance topped up, the way you might rock a baby to keep it asleep. Stop moving, and the spell tends to break, which is exactly why maladaptive daydreamers so often can't sit still while they do it, which leads to something you might not expect. Psychologists increasingly file this alongside dissociation. Not the dramatic movie version, but the everyday kind, where your attention detaches from the here and now and goes somewhere else. We all sit on that spectrum. You felt it driving a familiar route and arriving with no memory of the journey. Maladaptive daydreaming looks like the far, far end of that same line. It has even been proposed that it should be recognized formally as a dissociative condition of its own. Now, the honest question: if it costs them so much, why on earth do they keep going back? Because the inner world gives them, instantly and reliably, the things the real one is slow and stingy with. In there, they are competent. In there, they are loved or admired, or finally, properly seen. In there, the conversation goes the way it should. The loss never happened, and they are the version of themselves they suspect they could have been. Real life makes you wait years for feelings like that, and often never delivers. The daydream serves them in 90 seconds, on tap. Of course, the brain keeps ordering from the place with no waiting list. And here is the part videos like this usually skip, so we won't. For a lot of people, this didn't start as an indulgence. It started as a rescue. It often shows up in childhood, in kids who were lonely or overwhelmed, or somewhere they needed to not fully be. The daydream was the exit. It was a genuinely clever thing for a young mind to build, a place to go when there was nowhere safe to go. The tragedy is only that the exit was so good, so comforting, that the door never really closed again, and a survival tool slowly became a habit, and then a home. Quick one, before the last piece. If you have watched this far and quietly recognize yourself, do me a small favor and hit like, because it genuinely helps this reach the other people pacing their kitchens right now, thinking they are the only one. They are very much not. Right, back to it. So who is this actually happening to? More people than you'd guess. Careful estimates put it at roughly 2.5% of adults, with the numbers running higher among students and young adults. That is not a handful of unusual people. That is potentially 1 in 40, quietly running a second life behind their eyes, and mostly convinced they are uniquely strange for it. There is also a striking overlap with attention problems. In one study, up to 3/4 of maladaptive daydreamers also met the criteria for ADHD. But be careful with that, because it is easy to get backwards. It is not that they can't pay attention, it is that they are paying enormous total attention just to the wrong world. Immersive daydreaming isn't an empty, distracted mind. It is a completely full one, pointed inward. So where does that leave us? Not, I think, with a verdict, and definitely not with a cure sold in the last 30 seconds. It leaves us with a line, and the line is the whole thing. Daydreaming, the ordinary kind, is one of the best features your mind has. It is where you rehearse and plan and invent and comfort yourself and imagine your way into a bigger life before you go and build it. Nobody should want less of that. The imagination that runs these enormous inner worlds is the same imagination behind every novel, every song, every plan that ever pulled someone out of a bad situation. It is not the enemy. The only question that actually matters is a quiet one. Is the daydream a place you visit or a place you've moved into? Is it giving you a runway back to your real life or a reason to keep skipping it? Because the moment the second world starts feeling better than this one, reliably, every day, it stops being a refuge and starts being a replacement. And the cost of a replacement is the thing it replaced. So the next time you catch yourself pacing, headphones in, halfway to somewhere that doesn't exist, you don't have to panic and you don't have to call it broken. You can just ask the honest question: am I resting here or am I hiding here? And if the answer is hiding, the way out isn't to kill the imagination. It's to slowly, gently make the real world worth staying awake for. One real conversation. One real thing built. Enough of them, and the door stops being an exit and becomes just a window, a nice one, that you look out of on your way past. If naming things like this is the kind of thing you find worth your time, a quiet subscribe helps more of it reach the people it's for. And if a particular face came to mind while you watched, the one who's always somewhere else, maybe just gently let them know they're not the only one. Sometimes that's the whole rescue. You put your headphones in and you started to pace. Now you know where you go, and you know the way back.